Hey everybody, my name is Bishop Nectarios, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. Most of my videos, as you know, are on faith, but I always intended to have a couple of other smaller channels, not just our ancient faith, which is going pretty strong. There are new videos in development for that, but also a channel for my passion for the martial arts, and we also had a plan called Coffee with the Bishop, which was sidelined temporarily because of the death of Father Norwood in Texas, who was going to be my co host. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about some of the things that make the martial arts a passion, and maybe one or two pet peeves also while I'm at it. Now, for those of you who don't know or don't care, frankly, I started off in judo, but before that, if you want to count when I was 5, I took karate, and I was hooked right then and there. We took it from this 80-year-old Japanese man named Master Sonny, and my parents took me out of it because for some reason some kid in the class had an issue with me, and I still to this day never figured out why. He comes out of the class a higher belt than me. I'd only been doing it a few weeks, and he goes to throw a punch at me, and I caught it and then rolled him over my knee onto the couch, and the sensei ran over there and broke it up. um, but before all that happened, I was hooked on the martial arts to some extent. And at the time, all I knew about was karate. So years later, I get involved in judo. And then Taekwondo, which was the first time I achieved real belt rank. Not that that really means anything. You know, a lot of people give Taekwondo a hard time because so many people achieve a black belt, but there's a different significance in Taekwondo for a black belt. You're not expected to be an expert in Taekwondo. When you get your black belt, you are a trained student. You have learned the syllabus that's required to achieve the first degree, but now all that means is you're a trained student and the expectation grows. So, yeah, you do see little kids getting black belts in Taekwondo, but that doesn't make them necessarily a belt mill because you're putting the standards of other martial arts onto Taekwondo. Ironically, you're putting standards in from other arts, from other continents, from other cultures onto a Korean martial art. And Taekwondo was really not my first love with the martial arts because karate is what gave me the passion for that martial art ages ago. And judo was amazing. It was the first time that I had a chance to go full in, hardcore. Most of these other things were classes that were being held at a YMCA, and I took them until the Y stopped offering them or the teacher moved on or whatever. I was taught by Grandmaster Jung Kil Kang, who is retired now, and as a matter of fact, he has like a bazillion students, and he's had a number of people become masters. They've opened up schools, I don't know, all over the place. Um, and he taught me all the way up to deputy black belt, and then I stayed at that for years and years and years and years. And part of the reason was as I moved uh, about a year or two after that. And deputy black belt is like purgatory. Yes, it's a black belt, but it's not a first degree black belt, and it's not a senior red belt. Not all schools have them. It's not really even a part of the Kuki-One's deal. But that's somehow where I ended up, so I kept on practicing Taekwondo for over a decade at this rank black belt purgatory. This is a master that lived around here, retired too. Um, So the opportunities to test weren't there for me. Eventually, I realized you need to know how to wrestle if you're going to train, if you're going to spar, especially against people from other styles, which was a habit of mine. Because I noticed that Taekwondo became very It became very sport oriented and not very self defense oriented. And there are fighters in the UFC who use Taekwondo on the regular. One of my favorites is Chemo. Um, I hope I didn't say that name wrong. He is a pastor with Taekwondo and I believe Brazilian Jiu Jitsu who was a fighter in the UFC. And I was also a non denominational pastor. He was one of my favorite fighters. So, and there are other examples too. So Taekwondo has all the same techniques as any other martial art. However, all that's getting emphasized is kicking people. There are knees, there are elbows. There's one technique where you reach down and grab them by the junk and yank. That's hidden in the, I think, the blue belt form. I'd have to double check again. I forget. But, there's all these techniques that never get taught in a real sense, and they don't get pressure tested in a real sense because when you spar, you're sparring according to a set of rules. So what I had to do was I had to go out looking for guys from other styles. Now, where I'm living, there are a number of bare knuckle boxers. They're good guys, and they're fun to be around. They're fun to train with. And when you're sparring, if you leave an opening, they will mercilessly hammer it, and then you'll get up and do it again. And over time, that refined my practice. Throughout the path, I've accomplished other belts. I have a black belt in Ikomaru, and I have a green belt in in karate. And all the time, these techniques have been slowly integrated into my understanding of what it means to practice the martial arts. Oh, and in case you're wondering, the name of the karate that I practice is Yurichiru. Yuichiru. There's a good way to say it. I loved all the martial arts that I've trained in, and I'm always looking to train in something else. But the bedrock of my style is a mixture of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Taekwondo. I mean, I went and trained in ninjutsu. I did a few other things too, but really that's the meat and potatoes of my personal style, which was one reason why I was a big fan of chemo. Um, and over the years, the martial arts has given me quite a lot in return. The martial arts now and today is giving me an opportunity to train with my son who is coming of age, and he needs that kind of discipline. He needs that kind of practice and exercise. Some of you who know me know I'm a little bit husky, and that happened right as I got my belt in Taekwondo. The arthritis kicked in bad, and I couldn't walk, and so I couldn't train nearly as hard, but I was still eating the same diet that was designed for someone who was working construction 5 days a week and training 5 days a week, um, and sometimes 6 days a week if there was a testing going on. And for me, the martial arts have given me a sense of peace that comes from training. I've never been a weightlifter. I've never been a runner. I've never been the kind of fella that does one of these jazzercise classes or something like that. The only physical exercise I've really stuck with is martial arts. And it's the reason why I didn't gain a whole lot more weight after it got bad. I mean, really bad. Like, my arthritis made it so I could only walk on crutches for weeks at a time sometimes. I have no idea why it hit so hard. But it was merciless. And you know what I had to do is I had to change the way I trained. Because in Taekwondo, there are tenets of Taekwondo, and one of them is indomitable spirit, which, if I remember my Korean correctly, is Bakjuk Bulgul. And I had to change Taekwondo so that I practiced it more like Tai Chi sometimes, because slow and careful, and be careful how I kick, and change the way that I kick so that I'm doing things that will reduce the risk of injury for me. But I didn't stop practicing. Whenever I could, I still got out and practiced. Um, and maybe I had to go a little bit more towards the forms, the poomsae, than, say, getting into the ring and kicking someone. I had to start bringing in my knees, my elbows, my knife hands, my punches, all the other stuff that Taekwondo has, but because it's become so much of a sport and not a self defense method, has not been taught as effectively and hasn't been pressure tested as fearsomely. Which means if you're ever in a bad self defense situation, you're screwed. Because if you don't train it, you won't use it when you're in the moment. So, as my practice begins to evolve, as things start to grow, my microphone is getting bounced around. I'm starting to change a little bit too. I'm only 37, so I'm not that old. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. But there are times when I feel the effort that's necessary to put into a high intensity training. And my favorite is Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because, man, I don't care how tough you are. You get into that, you will sweat, and you will sweat, and you will sweat, and you will work your tail off to achieve results. And you'll roll, and then you'll roll, and you'll roll. And if you're not rolling, you're drilling. And if you're not drilling, you're rolling. And you're you're not going like 25%, 30% when like strikers. You're going full tilt, especially against some of the higher belts. And I've never really concerned myself with belt rank with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu because, holy wow, Batman, I still, I've been at it for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now, and I have one stripe on my belt, and it's a white belt. I've been going as hard as I can whenever I can, and I love it. And I had to start with the Gracie University stuff, which I made a video on that way earlier in my. Do we want to call this a career? I think so. Mm. Anyway, way earlier in my video making options, I made a video about my thoughts on Gracie University. If you go back in the video's history, you can get a look at what my thoughts were at the time. And I was later blessed by the fact that a teacher moved down here. He was a brown belt at the time, but has since earned his black belt from a gym up in Denver, Colorado. His name was Pat. And he teamed up with a judo practitioner and they named Marcio, and they have been going hard in the paint. They've been teaching for free. They hold their training. They used to hold their training at the National Guard deal before the COVID thing hit, which shut it down for quite a long time. Man, I was heartbroken about that. But I was able to take my education a lot farther now that there was someone within 100 miles that taught these things. I still make use of Gracie University if I want to look at my notes, if I want to look at a video demonstration. But if I get a chance, then I will be going back to classes. They just got started like a week or two ago, so I'm excited about that. I can't wait to see how everybody's been improving. I love the class. There are two kinds of instructors that I've run into. There is the guy that is confident in his abilities and he will put the boots to you and your job is to survive. And then there's the guy that knows his stuff and he'll let you work. At some point in time he's going to get his in, but he'll let you work and train, and you'll learn a lot from that kind of a teacher. And that is the kind of a teacher that Pat and Marcio both are. Um, so I learned a lot from them. And there were things that, more than just the set curriculum from Gracie University, because Gracie University has a specific focus. ways of training that, what they call undocumented knowledge gets passed along really good. And I never would have had this opportunity if they didn't show up. I was also blessed by the fact that I had another training partner named Pat, different guy than the guy that teaches the classes down in Lander. This Pat trained with me whenever we could throughout the majority of this miserable pandemic. And we kind of helped each other train, go along, pressure test, gain a little bit more experience and knowledge. And when we could, I mean, obviously, both of us have families, both of us live lives. Um, I think he has a bigger commitment than I do because at this point, um, I was divorced and he has a wife and two children to take care of. I just have my son living with me. Um, and together, we're keeping our training as crisp as we can until we can go back to that class. However, one thing that I wanted to talk about, now that I've gone over all of this other stuff about me that you probably didn't care about, is I wanted to talk about this thing I see in Taekwondo. It is driving me insane. I see all of these videos, high level belts with their hands around hip level, sparring. Oh my God. Have you not paid a single moment of attention in any of your training? Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? I was sparring with some of those bare knuckle boxers, and my hands throughout the fight were getting lower and lower and lower. And then you know what happened? I got punched in the face by my sparring opponent because my hands kept dropping during the fight subconsciously, and whack, I got hit. How can you say that you are practicing correctly when your hands are down near your hips and your form is sloppy? Here's the problem. Here's why I am upset. Because it's not just your sparring and your actions. The people of the internet, which is pretty much everyone these days, sees what you're doing, and instead of saying this is his way of competing, they say this is the state of Taekwondo today because someone taught him to fight like that. And also on the fact that you're proceeding from the idea that you're learning a martial art that has self-defense applications. Yet, you're leaving your face completely unguarded so you can enjoy what? Your ninja iron face technique? Force your enemy to break their knuckles on your face? What is your strategy? Okay, rant over. Please, Taekwondoists, keep your hands up. Cover your face. Tuck in your elbows so you protect your ribs. Please do not make us look like we don't know what we are doing in the ring. It is up to you to represent Taekwondo to the next generation because you as competitors are going to get out of your competitive years, and what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to teach the next generation of competitive fighters how to compete, right? But the thing is if you have a career based on lousy technique, such as keeping your hands around your hips, then you are going to teach the next generation to do the same thing. It's harder. I get it. When we're doing the really, really high kicks, a lot of us try to move our hands out of the way so that we can kick at the head. It's weird. I don't understand. It does work, but again, your hands are not protecting your face. And a lot of the old school fighters that I know, if you go for a head kick, they'll trap your leg and sweep your foot. I know that because I got praised for doing that during Taekwondo, and I don't think I deserve to have been praised for doing that because I didn't intend to do that. That was an automatic reaction to someone trying a head kick. And Technically, it's against the rules in sparring, as I understand it, to trap the leg and sweep the foot. However, that's was how I was trained in various other styles, so I reacted. Um, Please keep your hands up, your elbows tucked. You don't want a broken rib. You certainly don't want something bad to happen to your face. It drives me insane when I see this because you represent Taekwondo to the entire world. Now, on a side note, I want to congratulate those same fighters because getting in the ring takes a degree of balls. I got in the ring once against a mixed martial artist and I got absolutely destroyed because I didn't do enough training, because I didn't prepare, because I wasn't hungry enough for it, and I deserved to get my butt absolutely kicked. So I understand how it feels to get into the ring, how much courage it takes to step into that ring, and I understand what it's like to lose. However, I also fought a couple of fights where I won too. I understand how much it takes to get in the ring and fight. So I want to congratulate every one of you who've done it because it takes more balls than most people have. So that's it for today. Let's look at more martial arts topics coming up. Um, Maybe I might even try to get in some demos if I can talk my sparring partners into it, especially some of the boxers. I really, really, really want to put some of those videos up. Because of how easy it is to get injured, I have to wear my armor, my Taekwondo sparring armor, so I look like an armored panda. It's kind of funny. I love it. But at the same time, I'm able to spar without walking with a cane or crutches. So it's worth it to suit up in all of that blasted armor that makes you sweat right through your dobik or your gi. It's worth it to pad up a little bit instead of being on crutches. So there you go. Now, I think that's it for today. There's more coming up because there's been some developments in my practice of Ikomaru, and I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in the future. Um, let's see where things go. There's going to be more religious content coming out. Coffee with the Bishop is on its way. I promise. I just had to refigure everything out. A lot of Father Norwood's knowledge on the matter is no longer present and no longer accessible to me, though I'm sure if I asked his wife, she would be happy to oblige. But Father Norwood was building an entire studio on his own dime, so that um, the episodes for Coffee with the Bishop could be made right. You know what I mean? Better quality microphones, and he had teleprompters and all this stuff coming in that blows my mind because it's outside of my knowledge and expertise. But Father Norwood had prior knowledge from a job he used to work, I think, in the 80s. Um, so it is coming. I just have to plug the gaps and get the interviews set up and business like that. So that's it for today. Everybody have a wonderful day. Take care. Talk soon.